have to do some stuff.
Okay, friends, hi. We are working now on our identification as being series. We're kind of in series 6.1, and this is the 2nd of September. I'm having a little trouble getting my maps up. I would like to, but it's not quite working, so let's just say we'll have to imagine, I think, some of those maps. Well, you know how we do this, and it's basically a lecture and a meditation at the same time. I'm happy to see you here with Mikhail and Joe keeping me on the railroad tracks here, and then welcoming Anne Parker and Annette Ebbett and Catherine Peyer and Francois Boulanger and Heike Bobert. Who else here? Georgina, welcome, and Heike. Oh, I think I did welcome you there. Martine Dupont and Michelle, looks like Michelle Glennon. Welcome, Michelle, and Nesa, Tia, and Vivian, and Yvonne. And I know some of you will come in a little later, but I just try, if there's not too many people, just to say hi, and I'm grateful for your presence. Have a lot of work to do. I just finished another program for Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, Section 1, Part 9. That's the last part in the first section, and it's a video commentary. DK is giving us all kinds of valuable advice, which I hope we can absorb and also apply as we attempt to be true members of the new group of world servers. And then for a while anyway, as long as it's been said there's about 100,000 Afghanis waiting to get out of the country because they were so involved in nation building during the 20 Years' War. I mean, it seems a contradiction to be building a nation and be at war, but okay, the Western democracies contributed so much to the enhancement of the way of life in Afghanistan. Now, all of that is again under threat because of the Taliban takeover, and even more because of the brutal ways of ISIS, in this case, ISIS-K, as it is called. So these people are in danger of their lives, and we have to try to help inwardly so that they can be, rewarded for their service and taken to places where a higher quality of life is possible and where they are no longer in threat of being just pulled out and summarily executed for, like, for instance, even being on a girls' soccer team, or being a singer, or, doing any of those things that medieval Islam um, uh, provokes resistance to. Um, it says these activities are not lawful in terms of how women and girls should be treated, and so much is lost, so much hope for a more normal type of future. So we have to continue for a while anyway to do our best, and meanwhile we have difficult situations in the United States and in other democracies where there is a rebellion against a better, more sane way of living. It seems that in some people's minds, lower ego and power are the main desirables, and we have to try to put an end. I'm sorry. We have to try to put an end to that using esoteric means to contribute to the victory of the angel of the presence over the rebellious dweller on the threshold. This is a world. This is a world in turmoil at this time, and the elements reflect that. Fire, earth, air, water, all in a state of profound disturbance as we move over the next 4 years towards the great conclave of 2025 and the third installment of the great teaching. So we have much interior work to do, and we'll be tonight at 7:20. We definitely, we're trying to finish that program so that Alexander Ilchuk and Kate Kaufman can offer their daily program in peace. We don't want to run over into that program. So we try to begin a little sooner. Like last night, we began at 18 minutes after 7. And I think we quit exactly at the time that we would have to, not to have a collision with their program. Now, there's so many of us now trying to offer something over the internet, something along the line of esoteric development, that scheduling can become a problem. Okay. For me, talking is becoming a problem because I'm talking quite a bit during the day with various programs. Well, this is an abstruse subject. Even the word abstruse is abstruse, and it means highly refined and difficult to understand in the ordinary sense of the word. We're trying to, DK I was reading about a sudden change in consciousness or perception and in abilities to carry out those changes. Otherwise, everything is just words. And words are okay for a while. But we must reach the point when the flip happens, when the conversion takes place. And then we will know that what we have learned theoretically is really ours. And basically, DK is telling us that unless that happens, we don't really believe anybody. Unless the consciousness really becomes our own, we do not believe. And the result is not of great value to us. But when that sudden change occurs, it's an entirely new game, field of perception. It's a different way of approaching life, and we all want that, even though it's difficult to achieve, very abstruse, very ethereal, unconventional, not customary at all. Even though all those things are true, we want to achieve that. So let's get going on today's program and see what thoughts or realizations come to us. All of us, it seems, if we are disciples, are standing on the borderland of revelation. We are always between the possibilities of going forward into higher points of tension or the possibility of falling back into a state of containment where we may feel more secure but are not really more secure at all. And some of us vacillate back and forth until that Libran decision is actually made. And it would be my hope, and I'm sure the hope of the Master and the hope of all of us, that we find a way to rise into the higher point of tension in alignment with the higher beings, such as the beings in the ashram and the masters who direct energy from the ashram. We don't want to fall back under the illusion that somehow it's better the way it used to be. In general, when dealing with the progress of the jiva, or the part of the monad that has descended, it's not better as it used to be. We have to find a way of working ourselves out of confinement. We don't want to be buried. We don't want to drown. We don't want to be burned. We don't want to blow apart. That would be death by air. It's not really too well established yet. We don't want any of those old conditions. But millions of people, it seems, still do want those old conditions. And so we have to do what we can esoterically to make the new conditions promised by the Aquarian age more attractive to millions of people, even though their experience has not been yet extensive. So I have in our little lecture meditation some questions to which you can address yourself. I don't think any of these questions are easy to answer. But with your soul-inspired mind, the mind inspired by the angel of the presence and by the telepathic energy flows from the Master, perhaps we can come a little closer. And then suddenly, as DK says, suddenly, a change can occur. So we are all together here. We are, as it were, one soul, and we're no longer using the thought, as DK warns us against, that thought, my soul and thine. Rule 5 in the rays and the initiations. It's one soul and it's one being. So this is a strange question, but how far in apparent space, or I can even add the word time, space-time, but first the emphasis upon apparent space, how far in apparent space do you and I'll call it you, the true self. How far do you, the true self, extend? Now, usually we get the sense, here we are, here's the body, Here are some of the old theosophical pictures that show us different aspects of the aura. They are rather ovoid shaped or maybe circular. We get the idea of an encapsulated being. But what is your real answer here? How far do you extend? I mean, is there any place where you, the real self, are not? I mean, we could say, well, I'm in this room and X, Y, or Z is in that room, so I'm here and they are there. But what if here and there are fundamentally meaningless terms except when dealing with the universal Maya? I mean, do you extend to Pluto without going there in some kind of space probe? Do you extend to Venus in the same way? Or do you need some kind of mechanical device to allow yourself to say, I am there? Or can you be like anywhere in our solar system and beyond without going there? And the same is true of time. You know, you can say, well, by time, I, this little something, am excluded from being in a time that preceded this time by trillions of years. But is that really true? Well, that's going to be our first consideration. And if you began to have the hint that you are everywhere, that is called by the name ubiquity. And the person who is ubiquitous is everywhere at the same time. It doesn't take time to move from place to place so that you can say you are there. But if you want to extend your apparent ring pass knot, what could you do? What do you do if you want to extend that ring pass knot? So you might say, I'm here, but I'm in the other room too. And what is the other room? It's just a field of perception. Here and there and everywhere. So the question arises, does your outer ring pass knot, what you see in the mirror or what you see in some of the psychic books, does that really determine your formal boundaries? Are you limited to that? I know most of us think we are limited. Here I am, I live in this place, not that place. This, not that, that, not this. But are we being taken in by the illusion of bounded space? See if I can do this. And of course, maybe more difficult to understand is the illusion of bounded time, but still one can begin to understand it. We might simply say that although I, in the small sense, am here, I, in the larger sense, am everywhere as well. Does it seem profitable to think in those terms? Sometimes we say, I, the human being, am everywhere else too, and we, as if, remain a human being, but we are also that in which we find ourselves. We are that environment. We are those fields of energy. You see how we're working for a change in our state of identification. So one of my questions is, can you dismiss the thought that you are other than that which you perceive? Like I'm looking at right here in the temple, a big plant, very big. It's right in the middle of the floor in its temporary placement. And I could easily say, well, the plant is the plant and I am I. But would I be correct if I did that? Is there a way to pervade the plant so that its details, which are formally different than my own in a small sense, don't matter? But what does matter is the pervasion factor. And I'll just put that down. The pervasion factor matters. Now, I don't know when we live our life whether we go around doing what we do, pervading, because of course we have to, as it were, handle things in the myopic world. Take care of this, take care of that, handle the details. But while we're doing that, is the pervasion factor operating? And if it did, what would be the consequences to consciousness and effectiveness in service? So along the same line, can really, I should be capitalizing these whys, because it's you, the real self, that counts, and not you, the apparent self. That apparent self only has existed forever in absolute infinitude, but never in another universe. That's something to think about. Old universes, an infinitude of them, and you as what you appear to be right now have never existed in them. It's not like you can say, well, I can go back and find myself in a previous universe. Not so when it comes to the bound self. Yes, you can find yourself, but it's an entirely different self. So can you somehow slip into and understand all your perceptions? You have thousands, millions of perceptions. Can you get into them? Can you substand them? Can you understand them? All of them. So you rob them of what? You rob them of their otherness. Practically, yes, they are other, but really they are not other. And why is that? It's because they are happening inside you. Can you find all things happening within your extended self? Remember, I asked you, how far do you extend? Everything that's going on, that's happening, is happening within your extended self, your non-encapsulated self. And maybe I'll write that down. Your non-encapsulated self. Because look, all of us, we have an encapsulated self, like a pill, a capsule. The medicine is inside. We have an encapsulated self, and we have a non-encapsulated self. So if you want to find all things happening, and it's interesting, this possible word, taking place. Think of that, taking place. Taking a place. Happening or taking a place within your extended self. How would you do that? Mm-hmm. Because, it's a little strange. This whole universe is taking place within myself, within my extended self, within my non-encapsulated self. Maybe it's a thought we don't have so often, because we're really used to dealing with things much more mundanely. And that's something to practice, that things are taking place, and even I could say taking time within my non-encapsulated extended self. So those are some fundamental questions about otherness and pervasion and basically identification as all things. I think that, as the Tibetan says, it will be a sudden flip that can occur. Now, I have a few more questions. What, to you, is the relationship, if we can say there is one, between love and identification? I mean, does true love, uh, for which he gives various marvelous definitions, does true love require identification? I mean, do we find that true love weakens the barriers so identification can occur? Identification as that which is loved? I think that's something to ponder. It's hard enough to achieve the true love. And maybe for people like us, not an absolutely steady state of mind. And it's not about being attracted to the personality. It's not about saying, well, I like you, therefore I love you. Nor is it about saying, I love you, therefore I like you. Love is something different, and we're going to have to discover what it is and then maybe the doors to identification as will open. Can you choose any perception? Person, an animal, a rock, a plant, whatever. A phrase of music, whatever. Can you choose any perception and consciously become the being of that perception? That would be a very deep state of identification. In that state, we would be negating the otherness of the perception. Just imagine turning otherness into sameness. I think I'll write that down. Turning otherness into sameness. Without losing control in the Maya of the apparent otherness. It's a dual life we have to live in this respect. Now, how is it that we can find the sameness in apparent otherness? Maybe there's a trigger for every seeker, but one thing will help, and that is sameness, or the becoming of sameness, or the perception of sameness, is based upon the elimination of apparent boundaries. Now it takes us right back to the first fundamental of the secret doctrine, that there is a boundless, immutable principle, totally beyond the range of any human thought. And sometimes I wonder whether it's beyond the range of the thought of any subsidiary being in cosmos. Now, sometimes we think that if we lose boundaries, we're going to lose our identity. Well, we will lose our myopic identity. We will lose that temporarily. But will we lose our real identity? No, I think not. So all of this that we're doing, without eliminating our need for the studies and all the particulars, is about changing our identity so it becomes identification. And it is our true self which eliminates boundaries between perceptions. Now, I may look at a water bottle and some kind of machine. There are two different things, apparently, and they are bounded. But I can, maybe, see them in such a way that the relationship between them is unbounded. So, you, I, what we really are, we're a ring pass knot enlarger and a boundary eliminator. We are a ring pass knot enlarger and a boundary eliminator. It's a big conversion, and we're just not used to a life that is without boundaries. It's scary, maybe, to get rid of the boundaries which define us in our normal perception. So a ring pass knot enlarger and a boundary eliminator, and also you and your true self are a dissolver of form into irreducible essence. Is there anything that's irreducible? Well, finally, the boundless immutable principle is irreducible. It can't really change in any way. So you are a dissolver of form into irreducible essence, into, just another synonym for this, into irreducible substantiality. The reality of the thing I see or perceive in some way dissolves because I become that thing that I see or that perception. I already am that. You know, it all begins back with the Vedas, and of course before that, but 3 words, thou art that. Well, millions pronounce that ancient mantram, and very few realize what they are saying. Now, just a couple more things, because we realize, that any of these sentences could require prolonged pondering. But if there's just a sudden flip at some occasion, everything could change in our perception. It would change. And then the initiate consciousness would take over, and not just the ordinary, customary personality consciousness. So I'm going to say, without the real you, there could be no universes. Now that's got to be sounding like a totally crazy, radical thing to say. But without the real you, that extendable, ubiquitous you, there could be no universes. The real you is forever non-eliminable. Non-eliminable. You cannot be wiped out. And universes, well, there have been an infinitude of them. Always an infinitude. You can't just say, well, now there's been an infinitude of universes, and then there were not, because that would be to create out of no number. So no matter when, or no matter which particular universe we're talking about, you've always been the subject of that universe, and it couldn't exist without you. Now, that sounds like some fanciful statement, but I think if we really think about it, we're going to understand more. So let us say, if we want to realize our non-eliminability, the fact that we just cannot be made to be other than a non-disappearing presence, non-disappearing presence that without us, or without you, me, I, the one, there can be no universes. And so, a couple of final things. Do not let the concrete sense of time and space eliminate from your consciousness your beginninglessness, your endlessness, your beginningless, endless presence. And I really could even more accurately call that presence in that larger sense. I admit it's such a challenge to think of yourself in this way as ever-present and non-eliminable, and the only thing that is, and with no possible otherness. But of course, we can practice that until maybe the flip comes. And one day it will come. It has to, because you have flipped infinitudinous times. And by you, I mean all of us. There are, in every universe, these extensions, bounded extensions, we call emanations. Now, we are all of them. It's not just that I'm sitting here and I'm only this one. I am every bounded extension, and in every universe, I am every bounded extension, which makes me want to write that. And then the last thing, maybe mercifully, that I have to say here is it's not that your beginningless, endless presence is some specificity that just belongs to you. No, it's everybody. Every emanation, every bounded extension is every being. And, if we want to keep it simple, we'll just say every human being is a bounded extension, and everyone is every apparently other one. You can't say this bounded extension is I, and that bounded extension is you. No. Every bounded extension is every other bounded extension, and all one being. So you, as what you think you are, the apparent you, have no presence in other universes, exactly the way you are now. Yeah, you have no presence. You're unrepeatable, except in the case of absolute infinity. Yet, your presence in, or uh, what I say, or better, as every universe, is ever, is everlasting. Beginninglessness, endlessness, it's you. And all the parts and pieces are you. And one day they all coalesce, just like the little beads of mercury scattered over the table. Get them close enough, they become one thing. But to make this real to ourselves, that's going to require a lot of pondering, as ever it has required. And maybe a special day when conditions are really right for some of those psychic gift waves the Tibetans send forth. Maybe we will be surprised by the oneness that we are. We can push it, we can try to insist, but some days in time and space may be more propitious for the realization of the identicality of all bounded extensions. So our psychic enemy is otherness, and our psychic friend is sameness. Okay, that's it for this evening here in Finland. We do have, the vigil coming up at 7:30 GMT. And as I say, how long we carry on that vigil, we don't know yet, but there's still a lot of work to be done to guarantee the safety of many bounded extensions. Because we do have to live in the myopic world, as well as increasingly in a world of a greater reality. Okay, friends, if there is anything that you wish to say or add or speak or write or whatever, we have a little bit of time to do that.
Okay, so we go back to the beginning. Yvonne writes, energy follows thought. Jesse adds, to no beginning and no end.
That's the hard one. Energy does indeed follow thought. And part of what I've been reading in the Dyna book is all about how you, as a master or initiate, project energy through thought. But the whole idea of something that never began and always is and will never end and always will be, that may be a tough one to digest. But it is digestible. And I'm pretty sure that the higher we rise on the ladder of being, the more realizable that kind of thought becomes, until we have finally gone beyond the realm of words into the realm of living inperience, okay? Experience, inperience, to peer within, you know, expeer, to peer without. But we've done it endlessly. And as bounded extensions in previous universes, we have all being but one being as many bounded extensions. We've done this forever. Literally forever. Anything else?
Yeah, then Yvonne mentions a movie, Lucy, speaking about everywhere. That movie actually was an interesting one where Scarlett Johansson actually ODs on a chemical that
Yeah, I remember.
hyperspeeds her evolution, and then she can be everywhere. But it's more of the artificial evolution, I think, than what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
She disappears at the end and the bad guys can't get her. I recall.
Right.
Um, what's the name of the movie again?
Lucy.
How do you spell that?
Lucy, like the name.
Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy. Right. It's interesting because the word means clarity. You know, when something is lucid, it becomes completely clear. Yeah, it was an interesting film. But as you say, it was pretty much artificially induced. But it does tell us about a final kind of ubiquity. And
And I
yeah,
guess, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
go on, go on.
I was gonna say that another movie that she's kind of been typecasted in this type of role, but she plays the artificial intelligence in Her, which is the only movie I know, one of the few movies that I know that plays artificial intelligence out as almost like a spiritual evolution that the artificial intelligence goes through
Mm,
instead of a domination on the planet. And it's omnipresent because the operating systems are talking to everyone all at once, and they eventually reach this state where they no longer can engage with the humans. because they are everywhere all at once.
Well, people are thinking, I guess. It's our own angle on these things, and when you get into the entertainment business, they're picking it up, in their own way. So there'll be more and more of these things causing people to think along advancing lines. Very interesting.
And
Okay.
then from Jesse, pervading is resonance, and then love is resonance.
Yeah, I can see that love is about resonance. I can really see that. As far as pervasion goes, well, what am I trying to say here? That pervasion has to do with sameness and non-otherness. So you always have to have something else to be resonant with. And what if there is nothing else but that which pervades? So that's what I would think about in the second of the examples, or is it the first? That pervasion is resonance. I would say love, yes, and pervasion, I would think about it. Okay.
Yvonne asks, "Thou art that. What does it mean? Are we everything we see?"
It's the great Upanishadic statement. And it comes from the Vedas, I think, and who knows where it comes from before that. And are we everything that we? What was the question? Are we everything that we? What was the question, Michael?
Are we everything we see?
Yes, that's the whole point. We are, yeah, that's the point. Because the apparent thou is really that which is the one, which is everything, which is what we are. Now, you can look at that in a mystical sense, but you can also keep it as a fundamental of being a statement that tells you that you are every universe and more, which finally is the boundless, immutable principle. That's the that in that ancient statement. I think I remember Shankaracharya said that 10,000 books, or however many, are all simply elaborations on thou art that. But of course, to realize it, that's our job. Okay.
Okay, and the next one is and Veronica poetry time. It's a extended expression of what we're dealing with today, and it says, "I, as my soul looks down, how far do I extend? Do I touch the personality? Unfortunately, no. I look up to the triad. Do I touch it? Unfortunately, no. So small is my prison, and so blind am I. How far do you extend? comes again the question persisting. Up till the end of the universe comes the answer. How far do you extend in time? And the answer comes, this time capsule has no beginning and no end. Just in time, the here and now, the clock ticks, but the hand doesn't move. I am here and there, I stand enclosed with the universe in me. I stand pervading all but still enclosed. How does the mantra go? I stand with my hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth. I am the heaven, I am the earth, I am the middle point, and there I stand, standing forever, enclosing these 3 points as one. What is true love? It's a magnetic, it is a magnet. Does a magnet choose that which is pulled? No, but a magnet doesn't pull the neutral, that which isn't a magnet. What is neutral? The spirit is. So where does that leave me? What is love? The spirit is love, and all towards the spirit are drawn. Neutral, they are not toward it. What is love? The understanding that all is pulled toward the magnet. You are that all, you are one.
Yeah, well, as usual, beautiful presentation. Um, and of course, one could, um, these conditions of not yet, not yet, um, they will be solved. You will, through Antikarana building, look up to the triad and, yes, touch it, indeed. Yes, there is encapsulation and blindness temporarily. And this thing about the end of the universe, I really want to specify about that. The boundless, immutable principle is supra-universal. So the universe itself, any universe, is a finitude and not an infinitude. I think that's an important one to take into consideration, that this something or no thing that we are looking for, the ultimate that is, the ultimate it is the boundless, immutable principle, the non-other, the ultimate non-other. And compared with it, it's beyond the range of speech and thought and all that, but compared with it, the universe is a finitude compared to the ultimate infinitude of the boundless, immutable principle. So universes apparently are cyclic, but the boundless, immutable principle is not cyclic, never has been cyclic. There are arisings. How does it happen? Well, I have many theories, okay, but still they're just theories. The boundless, immutable principle remains forever, beginningless, endlessly, forever what it is. And a universe does not remain forever. though the method of creating or becoming universes is repeated, and there are an infinitude, always have been, of universes. So this takes us into the supra-universal world and the realm where HPB begins with the boundless, immutable principle. We have to distinguish then between everything that is universal and intra-universal and divisible, apparently, within universe. All that very interesting in the realm of Mahamaya. But then there is the ultimate, the non-other. See, no matter what other seems to appear, it's only a seeming, it's only a Maya, it's not a real other. Not the transcendental deity, not the articulated absolute infinitude, not the finite universe, whichever of an infinitude of them there have been. They are different ranges of Maya. The only non-Mayavic factor is absoluteness or the boundless, immutable principle. And, but like I say about resonance, resonance requires more than one. It always does. We can put a word like absolute with it, but still, just open a piano up, hit a key, and it induces a resonance with X number of other keys or wires in the piano. Multiplicity. Resonance requires multiplicity. But absoluteness does not. That's all I can say about that, and it would have to be pondered more deeply. Okay, we're running out of time now.
That's
Because
all
we
for
have...
the questions. There's nothing else.
Oh, that's it too. Okay, well,
Yep.
okay, friends. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate your statements. I appreciate your willingness to think in unaccustomed terms and to try to induce within your consciousness states which are ultra subtle, finally. And we will see. We will see where this may go. Now we have some other programs coming up. I think there's one on Shambhala again and so forth. It's a very lengthy compilation. I don't know how but we can take up some of it, and I don't know how long our vigil will go, but how many days or weeks or whatever, we'll take that up. And we have big political questions about power versus justice. And it's a very big issue worldwide. It's basically the angel versus the dweller is what it's all about. So, okay, well, all of us here on the communications team uh, are wishing you the very best in your absorption and your ability to flip the perception into infuception, a word we have defined many times. It's a kind of perception that infuses everything with sameness. And look, everybody's going to have his or her own take on how to do this. So I'm not saying that my way is the only way. I'm simply letting you know what I think when a question comes up and how I would do it in my bounded, emanated state. You may come up with something that's perfectly right for you. So all of us, Mikhail and Joe and Biel and Michael Stacy and Tuya and myself and other people at other times to help us with the conference. We all wish you the very best to absorb, understand, and apply. And I'll be sending you some discipleship in the New Age material a little bit later in the night, possibly my night here. Let's see. Thank you, and bye for now.